gruesome Gertie galloped his last on this date in July 22, 1991, when that Louisiana mercy seat claimed his final soul, Andrew Lee Jones. Jones was the last person electrocuted in the state of Louisiana. A jealous lover got back at the woman who dumped him, in a depraved and callous crime. Andrew Lee Jones took his wrath out on his ex-partner's child after he abducted the little girl as she slept. Jones broke into the house and swiped the 11-year-old in the early hours, leaving behind a telltale piece of evidence, a footprint. On February 17, 1984, 11-year-old Tamika Jackson was living with her mother and her grandparents in the Scotlandville section of Baton Rouge. At 4 a.m., the grandmother discovered that the child was missing from her bedroom. The police discovered that someone had broken the screen of the rear den window and had opened the back door. In the muddy ground near the house, police obtained a cast of an imprint made by the left shoe from a pair of size 8.5 tennis shoes. There were no signs of a struggle inside the house. As is usually the case, the criminal himself was only an accidental distinction for the milestone. Andrew Lee Jones in 1984 had abducted 11-year-old Tamika Jackson, the daughter of his on-again, off-again girlfriend. He raped and strangled to death the little girl while drunk, he said. In the days after the crime, Jones had hinted to a friend that recently he did something he didn't want to do and he'd done fucked up. But he seems to have had an inkling from death row that he was marked. Telling a British pen friend more on her in a bit, I'm definitely hoping that I won't be the last one to sit in that chair. I got the feeling that they are trying to get one more before they put an end to it. The investigation immediately focused on Jones, because his stormy romantic relationship of several years with the victim's mother had been broken off by her the week before. The victim knew Jones well, and he had been in the home many times. On the evening of the child's disappearance, Jones had called the mother's home 3 times and had told the grandmother that he would not be responsible for his actions if the mother continued to refuse to see him. About 6:30 a.m., the police went to the apartment where Jones lived with his sister, Terry Jones, and his half-brother, Abraham Miango. Jones told the police he had been home all night, and Miango and Miss Jones confirmed his story. Yet he managed to wangle an alibi. He was living with his sister and her partner and they vouched for him, actually going on record as saying that he'd been with them on the night in question. So Jones was off the hook for a few hours at least, until his sister got an attack of conscience. She phoned the cops to say she'd got it wrong and confessed that she could not account for his whereabouts for the half hour in question. Right there and then, the story unraveled. And it was just as well, for the small body of Tamika Jackson had turned up. The innocent child had been raped, bitten and strangled. The police got a warrant and found trainers to match the tread of the footprint, as well as other damning evidence to link Jones inextricably to the murder. During his arrest, officers found Jones in the bathroom washing a pair of size 8.5 tennis shoes. The bathtub was full of dirt and leaves. The officers seized the tennis shoes and a pair of green gloves, and they requested that Jones give them a statement at the station. After signing a waiver, Jones gave the police a tape-recorded statement in which he denied any knowledge of the offense. He was then allowed to leave with his sister. Although he initially told conflicting stories, he eventually gave a detailed account of his activities with defendant on Friday night and Saturday morning. According to Miango, he and Miss Jones were out with defendant on Friday evening, but dropped him off in Scotlandville. About 12:30 a.m. on Saturday morning, Jones returned to the apartment. Donald Nixon was with Jones, but he stayed only a short time. About 1 a.m., Mingo and Jones went to the Snowflake Lounge, but Jones left alone about 30 minutes later, and Mingo returned to the apartment. At some point between 4:30 and 5 a.m., Mingo was awakened by Jones' knock on the door, whereupon he let defendant in and went back to bed. When Mingo and Jones were alone in the apartment later that morning, defendant told him that he should have stayed home, that he did something he didn't want to do, and that he done fucked up. Jones gave Mingo a TG&Y bag and asked him to throw it away, which he did without looking inside. At Mingo's direction, police recovered a TG&Y bag from a dumpster near a grocery store. The bag contained socks, a pair of blue jeans and a pink sweatshirt, which were wet, muddy and stained. Later analysis identified the stains as a mixture of blood and seminal fluid. Mingo also told the police about a pair of boxer shorts that he had found in the bathroom of the apartment. The shorts belonged to Mingo, but Jones had worn them on Friday night. Pursuant to Mingo's written consent, the police recovered a pair of stained brown and white boxer shorts from the trunk of Mingo's car. Analysis confirmed the presence of blood and seminal fluid on the boxer shorts. On the basis of this information, police obtained a warrant and arrested Jones on Sunday. After advice and waiver of his rights, Jones gave a videotaped statement, in which he asserted that he and Rudolph Springer had gone to the victim's house early Saturday morning to commit a burglary. Fearful of being recognized, Jones remained in the car, while Springer entered the house. When Springer returned carrying the victim, Jones got in the back seat and pulled his cap over his face. After a few minutes, Springer drove Jones to his apartment at his request. That was the last time that defendant saw the victim. That said, his trial was not standard. He did not testify, nor did the defense put up an opposing argument. Yet Jones did not want to die. I'm like anyone else. I don't want to die or anything like that. His words were to leave a lasting social legacy. Amicus is said to have been founded in his memory, and was established to ensure defendants get the right to fair trials and appeals. At trial, Mingo, Miss Jones, and Springer testified for the state. Having been granted immunity, Mingo testified about Jones' statements and his request to dispose of the TG&Y bag. Springer denied any knowledge of the crime, and he and two corroborating witnesses established his alibi for the pertinent times. Another witness, Reginald Jackson, testified that on the night of the murder defendant asked him for a ride to Scotlandville to look for the victim's mother. He identified the tennis shoes, blue jeans and pink sweatshirt as the clothes worn by defendant that night. The state also introduced the tennis shoes seized from Jones' apartment. A forensic scientist testified that these were the same size and tread design as the one which left the impression at the victim's house. But he could not make a positive identification because of the poor quality of the soil and the resultant poor quality of the cast. He did state that there were no dissimilarities. A serologist established that the blood on the victim's underwear and pajama bottoms, as well as that on defendant's boxer shorts and the blue jeans, came from the victim. The seminal fluid found on these articles of clothing came from an individual with type O blood, the same type as defendant's. Jones did not take the stand, and the defense presented no evidence. The jury unanimously found defendant guilty as charged of first-degree murder. In the sentencing hearing, the state reintroduced all evidence adduced at trial. The defense presented the testimony of defendant's mother, 4 of his sisters and a cousin. The jury, finding 2 statutory aggravating circumstances, unanimously recommended the sentence of death. That said, his trial was not standard. He did not testify, nor did the defense put up an opposing argument. Yet Jones did not want to die. I'm like anyone else. I don't want to die or anything like that. His words were to leave a lasting social legacy. Amicus is said to have been founded in his memory, and was established to ensure defendants get the right to fair trials and appeals. Ironically, it was set up too late to help Jones, who was given over to the clutches of Louisiana's Old Sparky, where he kicked the electric bucket, aged roughly 36. He was also the last inmate to be executed by electrocution in the state. On July 22, 1991, Andrew Lee Jones was executed by the electric chair at Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. The man, Andrew Lee Jones, 35 years old, declined to make a final statement, smiled at his lawyer and his spiritual advisor, and was then strapped into the big wooden electric chair at the state prison. He was pronounced dead at 12:10 a.m. The execution was the 20th in Louisiana and the 149th in the nation since a United States Supreme Court ruling in 1976 allowed states to resume capital punishment. Mr. Jones had sought to delay his execution until September 15, 1991, when Louisiana is scheduled to begin using lethal injection instead of the electric chair for its executions. The Louisiana Pardon Board recommended such a delay, but Governor Buddy Roemer rejected it. "This man deserves what he is about to get," Governor Roemer said. While he did not make a final statement, at a pardon board hearing 3 days before he was executed, he said, "There's a possible chance I did it, a possible chance I didn't do it. If I had not been drunk, nothing like that would have happened. I'm like anybody else. I don't want to die or anything like that. Thank you for watching Death Row.